Hello, welcome to our eighth webinar series for the 22-23 school year. I'm your virtual PLC lead for 6 through 12 band, Dr. Zanfer Bell McCroy, and let's jump right in. Building strong percussionists as a non-percussionist band director. If you've followed my webinars in the past, you'll know that I am a flute player and I'm a proud flute player. I also play piano. But I've never been or never purport to be a percussionist. I have played percussion, but I don't consider myself a percussionist. I think we've all covered parts that were needed in different bands along the way, but I am not a percussionist. Let me be very clear. But as a non-percussionist, I'm always concerned about building really strong percussionists and making sure that they are equipped to go out into the music world and contribute. So this first section is going to be about keeping percussionists engaged and empowering your percussionists for beginning and intermediates. We're going to start there. And then we're going to talk about how they become more advanced and more ways to keep them engaged and empowered. And then we'll end with a final section. So let's jump right in. All right, so keeping your young percussionists engaged, starting with the very beginning. Start with the right fit. Instrument testing works. I know that because of the pandemic, we had to really pivot and shift gears when it came to instrument testing. And I do believe we are starting to get back into the groove, but testing on percussion is even more important, I think, than than the winds, because if a student is not well suited to percussion, it can be very daunting and overwhelming for them. And they can really get to the point where they really don't enjoy being in the band. And that's not what we want. So testing is very important. Some people test for percussion at the very beginning. Some people test for percussion after the first semester, after they've played a wind instrument for a while. I always tested at the very beginning. I wanted to start from jump. I didn't want to have to stop midstream once we were cooking. I wanted everyone to just cook all year. That's what worked best for me, but you have to choose what works best for you in your program. It's important to weigh the pros and cons of testing at the beginning and versus after a semester of playing a wind instrument. So, weigh those pros and cons and really just make a list and figure out what works for you and then commit to that. So my testing process, I haven't taught middle school in a long time. But when I last taught middle school, my testing process looked like this. I use a 3-step embouchure and posture process. That's just what I do. And I can't say that I created that. I believe that's a Kenny Beard method from, a long time ago. And I've been using it ever since I read an article or a book that he wrote about it. And so with percussionists, I do the same thing. It's a 3-step process. I make it, step 1 is building the fulcrum right there. Step 2 is curling the fingers around, making sure you've got the sticks in the hands, of course, and then bringing the curl the fingers around the step 2, and then placing the sticks or the mallets in a V on the drum head, practice pad, mallets, whatever. And that's step 3. And so once I do that and they mirror me doing that, we go through the process of echo and mirror rhythms. So I play, you play. So we're standing on either side of the snare drum or the practice pad, and I am doing everything backwards. So if I want them to have a right hand lead on a simple rhythm, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. But I want them to have a right hand lead, I'll do left, right, left, right, and things like that, so that I can see if they can mirror back to me. I always pay really close attention to rhythmic accuracy, the proper use of the wrists, and their sticking. So I want to see if they can mimic me exactly and manipulate their bodies in the right way. So can they mimic the, knock on the door motion of the wrist? Can they mimic can they mirror back what I did, left, right, left, right, left, right? Or are they trying to do exactly what I did, or are they mirroring me? So can they follow instructions? Then go to the mallets after we do that portion. And we do the same basic process. I have them build a fulcrum, close the fingers, place the mallets on the bar properly, mirror what I do, and then I have them echo back the first phrase of Twinkle Twinkle. I play it a couple of times um, for them, and I use the sticking I want, and they stand with me and they echo it back. So they stand beside me, watch me, and I always kind of start. I ask them if they're right-handed or left-handed so I can get an idea, and I'll start with their typically start with their strong hand. Sometimes I'll start with their weak hand if I'm doing a second test, meaning they kind of were okay, but they might have had some quirkiness. It just depends. I always kind of play it by ear, but I pay close attention to the pitches that they play, the rhythms, did they get them right? The sticking, was it the same? And the technique that they used. Did they maintain the technique that I showed them? Those are all indicators of whether or not they will be successful, like, quick, find quick success on percussion instruments. So be sure to select students that are prepared to face the challenges of being a percussionist. Being a percussionist is a lot. It's busy. It takes a lot of commitment and effort. It's not an easy instrument to choose, and so make sure they're ready for that. Make sure you're very honest about what percussionists do. Anytime a student would write down that they want to play the drums, I would tell them, you can't. There's no such thing as playing the drums in here. We play percussion, so you're going to play a lot of different instruments, and you need to be ready to do that. And so I have them really consider, is this something you really want to do? And if not, it's okay, no worries. There are a whole bunch of other instruments for you to choose from, but be really careful when selecting percussionists. So starting with the right equipment is really important. Decide what equipment you want students to start with. I always elected for the bell kit and the practice pad as opposed to the snare. It was just easier for students to transport, it's easier for them to manage, and is actually more affordable than the kit with the snare drum. It serves the same purpose. That practice pad is something they're going to be working on for the duration of their percussion career. So it's okay for them to just, to me, in my opinion, to practice on a practice pad. And it's also more affordable for our families to deal with. And anywhere we can keep costs down and still get the same instructional worth, it's great. Next, have a jumpstart day. And I know that if, sometimes we don't have the funds for this, but if you can muster up some coins for a jumpstart day, even if it's just for your percussionist, do it. It will be well worth the money. And you have a percussionist to come out and work with your students, and that will give them the best start possible. Not saying that you can't do it, because we can. We're all trained to do this, but it's something about having a percussionist stand in front of you as a young musician, wanting to be a percussionist, having that person be able to play anything that you can imagine in your brain, right? And having them standing in front of you and telling you about what it's like to be a percussionist, and from, that real percussion mentality kind of a space and place. That's invaluable. It really is helpful for our students to be exposed to pedagogues on their instruments. So this also ensures that students develop good habits from the start. A percussionist is probably not going to miss um, really simple or really, like, they're not going to miss fulcrum issues. They're not going to miss wrist issues. They're going to catch that from the very start. And then ensure that the clinician also focuses a lot on being responsible and dependable. Teaching them how to care for the percussion equipment is also an important topic. So not just about playing, but about what it means to be a percussionist in your program. Remember, it's important to instill in percussionists that it is essential that they are always prepared. Building the culture. From the very beginning, having your rehearsal slide up with specific instructions for percussion is important. They need to know exactly what to do every day, what to set up, what not to set up, where we're going to start, where we're going to end, all of the different things. They need to be ready, and they need to get into a habit of knowing that today is mallet day and I need to have my mallets, my book, and a stand, and I need to be ready when the timer goes off. Or today is a new instrument day is up on the slide. It said we're going to use the bass drum for the first time today. So get out a bass drum mallet. And I need to make sure that we have a bass drum mallet. So just those different things, right? So making sure they get accustomed to reading the board, and then make sure you get accustomed to giving them very specific instructions. It teaches them how vital it is to the success of each class period that they be prepared. It's really important if you instill that from the very beginning. You won't have some of those battles that we often have nightmares about with percussionists in the back of the room. So keep this in mind when you're thinking about building that culture. If a trumpet player doesn't read the rehearsal slide, it may cause a 5-second delay where they just switch their music, right? If a percussionist does the same thing, it can cause a 5-minute delay because they're going to have to reset up or set up for a piece that they weren't prepared for. So they didn't get everything out that they needed. So if they aren't prepared and proactive, then it can really cause a huge delay in the rehearsal process. It's even more, is it fair? No, but it is what it is. It's the reality of playing percussion. It is just part of the deal. When you play percussion, you know that that is a part of your reality. So, what will be your focus when it comes to your percussionist, right? Figure out how you want to divide your young percussionist time. Do you want them on practice pad a certain number of days, on mallets a certain number of days, and which days those are? All of those types of things. Figure that out before it's time for them to start so that you can communicate to them early. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays will be mallet days, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are practice pad days. So come ready for that type of work. I always found it most helpful to have percussionists on mallets often early on. It helps with pitch reference for the wind players, and it also reminded them that they're always going to be the pitch reference for our young wind players. They're just going to be that. If you're on mallets, you know you're the pitch reference for especially our young brass players. It is not push and play. It is like push and hope. So if they have that those mallet instruments in their ears is extremely helpful. Don't forget about them. They're so young, they're so fresh, and they're so far away from you. Don't forget about them. Spend time in the percussion section. Proximity is so important because they will feel disconnected from you as the director if you're always at the front of the room, always with the winds and never back there with them. Demonstrate as much as possible. They will love the attention with you coming back there and playing the triangle, or you showing them the proper technique on the tambourine. They love it. They love that attention. They love to have their band director back there with them because it means that they matter. Provide them with a process that they can use when attacking new lines in the book, when they're sight reading, all of these different things. If you give them a process, they can feel better about being so far away from you. This way, they don't feel so lost and so forgotten. So for me, the process that we use a lot, especially with my young percussionists, we use fingers on mallets and say note names very softly. So C C F F G G F. You know, we're saying that and using our fingers to actually touch the bars. And then we play rhythms on our chest and say counts 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You know, we do that, and that is twofold. I can see that, I can kind of hear that, and with the if they're saying the counts out loud, the person next to them is like, wait a minute, that's not the right, those weren't right. That's not right. That's not the right rhythm. So they can check each other and help each other or this person over here that's shadowing the mallet player in the sight reading room can say, no, that's not an F, that's a G. So it's a lot of, it's all about helping each other, but it's also about keeping them dialed in. Percussionists have a lot to do. They really, really do. They need a systematic approach to everything. So the more you can lay out for them, the better. All right, so that was a lot, I know. But I hope that that was helpful for you about empowering and engaging your young percussionists. You have any more feedback you want to give me, contribute to the conversation, or just ask any questions, drop a line in the discussion board, and I would love to hear from you. Stay tuned. Join me for part 2, getting more advanced, staying engaged, but getting more advanced. Again, if you want to check us out on any of our social media pages, our YouTube channel, or our website, all of that information is there. And I will see you soon for part 2. Bye-bye.